Welcome to today's episode where we'll be exploring Angela Duckworth's groundbreaking book, Grit: The Power of Passion and Perseverance. If you've ever wondered why some people succeed while others fail, or why talent isn't always enough, this episode is for you. You know, it's funny. We live in a culture obsessed with instant results. From same-day delivery to instant streaming, we've come to expect immediate gratification in almost every area of life. But when it comes to achieving anything truly meaningful, whether that's mastering a musical instrument, building a successful business, or becoming an expert in your field, there's simply no app for that. No shortcut. No overnight success button. And that's exactly what Angela Duckworth discovered through her research. As a former management consultant turned 7th grade math teacher, Duckworth noticed something fascinating. The students who excelled weren't always the ones who seemed naturally gifted. Instead, success often came to those who showed remarkable determination in the face of challenges. This observation launched her on a journey that would eventually lead to a PhD in psychology, a MacArthur Genius Fellowship, and groundbreaking research on what she came to call grit. So what exactly is grit? Duckworth defines it as passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. It's about having the endurance to work consistently toward challenges, maintaining effort and interest over years despite failures, adversity, and plateaus in progress. It's not just about working hard today, but showing up tomorrow and the next day and the next for months and even years. Throughout this episode, we'll explore the science behind grit, examine how it differs from talent and other positive traits, learn how to cultivate it in ourselves and others, and discover why it matters so much for achievement in virtually every domain of life. So settle in for a fascinating exploration of what it really takes to succeed in the long run. What grit is and why it matters. Let's start with a question that has puzzled psychologists, educators, and parents for generations. Why do some highly talented people never reach their potential while others with seemingly less natural ability achieve remarkable success? This question was at the heart of Duckworth's research when she began studying achievement. The conventional wisdom has long held that talent, natural aptitude, skill, or intelligence, is the primary determinant of success. We love stories of prodigies who seem born to excel in their fields. But Duckworth's research paints a different picture. Through studies of West Point military cadets, national spelling bee competitors, sales professionals, teachers, and students, she found something surprising. Measures of talent were far less predictive of success than measures of grit. For example, at West Point, where about 20% of cadets drop out before graduation, the military had developed a sophisticated prediction tool called the Whole Candidate Score that assessed academic, physical, and leadership potential. But Duckworth found that her simple grit scale questionnaire was a better predictor of who would make it through the grueling first summer of training known as Beast Barracks. Similarly, in the National Spelling Bee, she discovered that grittier competitors outperformed their peers not because they were smarter, but because they studied more hours and used more effective learning strategies. They approached practice differently, with deliberate focus on improvement rather than mere repetition. So what exactly is grit in more concrete terms? Duckworth breaks it down into two key components. First, there's perseverance, the ability to stick with things over the long term and bounce back from setbacks. This isn't just about working hard momentarily. It's about maintaining that effort day after day, especially when things get tough. It's finishing what you begin, staying the course despite obstacles, and picking yourself up after failures. The second component is passion, not just intense emotion, but a deep commitment to something that remains relatively stable over time. Gritty people don't chase every new interest that comes along. Instead, they develop and deepen their engagement with a chosen pursuit over years or even decades. Together, these two qualities, perseverance and passion, create the kind of sustained dedication that leads to mastery. And while talent certainly matters, Duckworth's research suggests that grit matters more for long-term achievement. This might seem like common sense. After all, fables like The Tortoise and the Hare have taught us for generations that steady persistence often trumps flashy talent. But in a culture that celebrates natural ability and overnight success, we often underestimate just how crucial sustained effort really is. Here's where it gets interesting. Grit isn't just about putting in more hours. Plenty of people work hard without making progress. Gritty individuals combine hard work with purposeful direction. They're not just busy. They're focused on improvement in ways that actually advance their skills. They have what psychologists call a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. This distinction matters immensely, because if achievement depends primarily on talent, then failure suggests a lack of innate ability, something you can't really change. But if achievement depends more on grit, then failure is just feedback, a temporary setback that tells you where you need to focus your efforts next. The implications are profound. As Duckworth writes, our potential is one thing. What we do with it is quite another. Grit gives us a framework for understanding how ordinary people can develop extraordinary skills and accomplish remarkable things not because they were born special, but because they applied themselves with exceptional focus and determination. The ingredients of grit. So if grit is so important, the obvious question becomes, what creates grit? Where does this combination of passion and perseverance come from? Is it something we're born with, or can it be developed? Duckworth approaches this question scientifically, breaking down the components of grit into 4 psychological assets. The first is interest. Gritty people don't just tolerate what they do, they find genuine enjoyment in their chosen pursuits. As Duckworth puts it, passion begins with intrinsically enjoying what you do. This doesn't mean every moment is blissful, but there is an underlying fascination and curiosity that sustains their engagement. The second component is practice, specifically what psychologists call deliberate practice, the kind of focused, challenging work that pushes you just beyond your current abilities. It's not just going through the motions or doing what's comfortable. Gritty individuals are constantly stretching themselves, seeking feedback, refining their approach, and focusing specifically on improving their weaknesses. The third element is purpose, the conviction that your work matters not just to you, but to others. While interest focuses on the self, I love doing this. Purpose connects your work to how it contributes to the well-being of others. This sense that my work makes a difference provides powerful motivation when interest alone might wane. And the fourth component is hope. Not just optimism, but the specific belief that your efforts can improve your future. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about what psychologists call growth mindset or a sense of agency. Gritty individuals believe that they can get better if they work at it, and this belief sustains them through inevitable setbacks. Together, these 4 elements, interest, practice, purpose, and hope, create the conditions for grit to flourish. But they don't simply appear overnight. Each develops through specific processes. Interest, for example, typically begins with a spark of enjoyment that deepens over time. Duckworth notes that many people mistakenly believe passion should strike like lightning, a sudden, overwhelming calling. But research shows that enduring interests more often begin as a tentative attraction that grows with engagement. As she writes, passion for your work is a little bit of discovery, followed by a lot of development, and then a lifetime of deepening. Similarly, the capacity for deliberate practice develops gradually. No one starts out loving the challenging, often frustrating work of pushing beyond their comfort zone. But gritty individuals learn to embrace this kind of effort, understanding that the discomfort of stretching their abilities is precisely what leads to growth. Purpose often evolves from personal interest to broader meaning. Many people begin pursuing something for purely personal reasons, but eventually connect their work to how it serves others or contributes to something larger than themselves. This evolution from self-oriented to other-oriented motivation provides a powerful source of sustained effort. And hope, the belief that your efforts matter, tends to develop through experiences of overcoming obstacles. Each time you push through a challenge, you build evidence that persistence works, creating a virtuous cycle where success reinforces the very qualities that led to it. Interestingly, Duckworth's research suggests that these four elements don't develop in isolation, but reinforce each other. Interest makes deliberate practice more sustainable. Purpose provides motivation when interest temporarily fades. Hope makes it possible to persist through plateaus. And effective practice creates the improvement that validates hope. This framework offers good news. While some people might naturally tend toward grittier attitudes and behaviors, the psychological assets that constitute grit can be cultivated. They're not fixed traits, but capabilities that can be developed through specific experiences and approaches to life's challenges. Talent versus effort. One of the most provocative arguments in Duckworth's book is her equation for how achievement happens. It goes like this. Talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement. Notice something interesting? Effort counts twice in this equation. According to Duckworth, your natural talent multiplied by your effort creates your skill level. But then your skill level multiplied by your effort, again, determines your achievement. This means that effort has a compound effect on achievement that talent simply doesn't have. Or to put it simply, talent counts, but effort counts twice. Let me illustrate with an example. Imagine two piano students, Alex and Jamie. Alex has natural talent, good coordination, excellent ear for music, quick to learn new pieces. Jamie has less natural aptitude but practices twice as long and with much more focus. After a year, Alex might still play better than Jamie due to that initial talent advantage. But after 5 years, 10 years? Jamie's double dose of effort, both in building skills and then in applying those skills, will likely lead to significantly greater achievement over time. This isn't just theoretical. Studies of accomplished individuals across domains consistently show that sustained, focused effort over many years is what distinguishes the highest achievers. Take the research on deliberate practice by psychologist Anders Ericsson, which Duckworth draws on. When studying elite violinists, Ericsson found that the best performers had accumulated significantly more practice hours than their less accomplished peers. Not because they were more talented from the start, but because they put in more focused work over time. What's particularly interesting is how this challenges our cultural narratives about achievement. We love stories of natural talent. The athlete who was obviously destined for greatness from childhood, the musician who seems born to play, the student who never studies but aces every test. These narratives are appealing because they're simple and dramatic. They also let the rest of us off the hook. Well, I wasn't born with that kind of talent, so no wonder I haven't achieved as much. But the research tells a different story, one where sustained effort plays a much more significant role than innate talent. This isn't to say talent doesn't matter at all. It does provide an initial advantage, and may determine what domains you're most likely to excel in. Someone with natural mathematical ability might become a great engineer more easily than someone who struggles with basic calculations. However, most of us dramatically overestimate the importance of talent while underestimating the cumulative power of sustained effort. As Duckworth puts it, without effort, your talent is nothing more than unmet potential. Without effort, your skill is nothing more than what you could have done, but didn't. This perspective is actually incredibly empowering, because while you can't control your genetic endowment or the specific talents you were born with, you have tremendous control over how much effort you put in. Effort is a choice available to all of us. It also explains something that might otherwise seem puzzling. Why extraordinarily talented people sometimes fail to achieve at high levels, while seemingly ordinary individuals go on to remarkable success. If achievement were primarily about talent, this pattern wouldn't make sense. But if achievement depends more on sustained effort, it becomes completely understandable. The talent versus effort distinction also helps explain why focusing too much on talent can actually undermine achievement. When we praise people primarily for being smart or gifted, we send the message that success should come naturally. This creates a fragile foundation for achievement, because as soon as things get difficult, as they inevitably do at higher levels of any pursuit, people who identify primarily with their talent often struggle. They haven't developed the habit of pushing through challenges because they expect excellence to come easily. In contrast, praising effort and persistence creates resilience. It ties a person's identity not to fixed traits, but to the process of growth itself. This connection between identity and process is a crucial component of grit, which we'll explore more later. Developing grit from the inside out. If grit is so important for achievement, how do we develop more of it? Duckworth approaches this question from two angles: how we can cultivate grit in ourselves from the inside out, and how our environment can support grit development from the outside in. Let's start with internal development, how we can deliberately increase our own grittiness. Duckworth offers several practical strategies. First, discover and develop your interests. As we discussed earlier, passion doesn't usually strike like lightning. Instead, it emerges gradually through exploration and deepening engagement. If you're not sure what your passions are, the key is to try things, lots of things, while keeping an open and curious mindset. Pay attention to what captures your interest, what energizes rather than depletes you, what you find yourself thinking about in your free time. Once you've identified something that sparks interest, give yourself permission to explore it more deeply before committing. Duckworth calls this the beginner's mind, approaching new activities with curiosity rather than judgment. Many interests die prematurely because we expect immediate mastery or constant enjoyment. Real passion requires time to develop. Second, practice deliberately. Simply putting in hours isn't enough. How you practice matters enormously. Deliberate practice has specific characteristics. It has clear, specific goals focused on improvement of particular aspects of performance. It requires full concentration and effort. It involves feedback and reflection on results. It often involves working on weaknesses rather than showcasing strengths. This kind of practice isn't always pleasurable in the moment. In fact, it's often quite challenging. But it's precisely this challenge that leads to growth. As Duckworth notes, deliberate practice is a behavior, and flow is an experience. While we might love the flow state that comes from doing what we're already good at, growth requires pushing beyond that comfortable zone. Third, connect your work to a larger purpose. Research shows that people who see their work as contributing to others' well-being tend to be more motivated and persistent. This doesn't mean everyone needs to work in traditionally purpose-driven fields like healthcare or education. Rather, it's about finding ways to connect whatever you do to how it serves others or contributes to something beyond yourself. For example, a software engineer might focus on how their code helps users solve real problems. A retail employee might recognize how their customer service makes people's days better. A student might connect their studies to future opportunities to contribute meaningfully to their field. Finding this beyond the self purpose provides motivation when intrinsic interest temporarily wanes. Fourth, cultivate a growth mindset. Pioneered by psychologist Carol Dweck, the concept of growth mindset refers to the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. This contrasts with a fixed mindset, which sees abilities as largely static traits. Research shows that people with growth mindsets are more likely to persist through challenges because they see difficulties not as evidence of inherent limitations, but as opportunities for growth. How do you cultivate this mindset? It starts with becoming aware of your own fixed mindset triggers, the situations or feedback that make you feel your abilities are being judged rather than developed. Then, you can deliberately reframe these situations, focusing on the process and your opportunity to learn rather than on proving your worth. Another powerful strategy is to practice optimistic self-talk. When facing setbacks, gritty individuals don't attribute failures to permanent, pervasive causes. I'm just not good at this. Nothing ever works out for me. Instead, they see setbacks as temporary and specific challenges to overcome. This learned optimism, as psychologist Martin Seligman calls it, can be deliberately cultivated through awareness and practice. Finally, Duckworth suggests we can build grit by surrounding ourselves with gritty people. Social influence is powerful, and we tend to adopt the norms and behaviors of those around us. By seeking out mentors, friends, and colleagues who demonstrate passion and perseverance, we create an environment that naturally pulls us toward grittier attitudes and behaviors. What's particularly encouraging about these strategies is that they don't require revolutionary changes to personality. Rather, they're specific practices that, when consistently applied, gradually shift our approach to challenges and long-term goals. As Duckworth writes, "Grit grows as we figure out our life philosophy, learn to dust ourselves off after rejection and disappointment, and learn to tell the difference between low-level goals that should be abandoned quickly and higher-level goals that demand more tenacity. Growing grit from the outside in." While developing grit from within is powerful, our environment plays a crucial role in shaping our capacity for passion and perseverance. Parents, teachers, coaches, and mentors can create conditions that either nurture or undermine grit. As Duckworth puts it, the environment around us is like soil. The same seed planted in different soils will yield different results. So what kind of soil promotes grit? Research points to several key factors. First, there's parenting style. Duckworth describes what she calls wise parenting, a combination of being both demanding and supportive. Parents who set high expectations while also providing emotional support and autonomy tend to raise grittier children than those who are permissive, supportive but undemanding, authoritarian, demanding but unsupportive, or neglectful, neither demanding nor supportive. This combination of high standards and supportive encouragement creates what psychologists call authoritative parenting. It communicates both, "I expect you to work hard and do your best," and "I'm here to help you succeed." Children raised this way learn that challenges are opportunities for growth rather than threats to avoid. The role of extracurricular activities also emerges as surprisingly important in Duckworth's research. Students who commit to demanding, long-term extracurricular activities, whether sports, music, debate, or community service, tend to develop more grit than those who don't. These activities provide a structured environment for learning the value of sustained effort and improvement over time. What matters most isn't which activity a child chooses, but that they stick with something challenging for more than a year. This extended commitment teaches lessons about perseverance that carry over into other areas of life. As Duckworth notes, following through on hard things teaches you a powerful lesson. You can change yourself. In educational settings, teachers and schools can foster grit through what Duckworth calls a hard thing rule. This simple principle has 3 parts. 1. Everyone must choose at least one difficult thing to pursue, such as playing an instrument, learning a sport, etc. 2. You can quit, but only at a natural stopping point, end of a season, school year, etc. Not in the middle of something when it gets hard. 3. You get to choose your hard thing. This framework provides autonomy, crucial for developing interest, while also requiring the experience of pushing through challenges. It teaches that commitment matters, not forever, necessarily, but at least long enough to experience the natural cycle of difficulty and improvement. The culture of our workplaces also significantly impacts grit development. Organizations that emphasize growth, deliberately challenging assignments, and long-term development tend to foster grittier employees than those focused solely on short-term results or innate talent. Leaders who model passion and perseverance, provide specific and constructive feedback, and create psychological safety for risk-taking help. Build cultures where grit flourishes. Beyond specific environments, broader cultural messages about effort and achievement matter enormously. Societies that celebrate naturals and overnight success stories subtly undermine grit by suggesting that exceptional achievement should come easily to the truly talented. In contrast, cultures that highlight the role of sustained effort and accomplishment promote grittier attitudes and behaviors. This is why the stories we tell matter. When we focus on the years of dedicated practice behind a musician's overnight success, the repeated failures that preceded a scientific breakthrough, or the daily disciplines that built an athletic champion, we create cultural narratives that normalize the grittier reality of achievement. Interestingly, Duckworth notes that certain subcultures within the United States, particularly immigrant communities, often excel at instilling grit. Many first- and second-generation Americans grow up with what she calls the immigrant edge, a combination of demanding standards and a deep appreciation for opportunity that naturally fosters perseverance toward long-term goals. The military also creates environmental conditions highly conducive to grit development. From basic training's intentional challenges to the institutional emphasis on duty and service before self, military culture deliberately builds psychological assets that contribute to grit. What all these external influences share is a common message. Excellence requires effort. Challenges are opportunities for growth, and what you accomplish depends largely on what you're willing to work for consistently over time. When this message permeates our environments, from family dinner conversations to classroom norms to workplace cultures, it shapes our approach to achievement in powerful ways. Grit and culture. One of the most fascinating aspects of Duckworth's research is how grit varies across different cultures and subcultures. These variations provide important insights into how social context shapes our capacity for passion and perseverance. In her global studies, Duckworth found significant differences in average grit scores across countries. For example, Japan and Germany, cultures historically associated with discipline and precision, tend to show higher average grit scores than some other nations. This isn't because of genetic differences, but because their cultural values, educational systems, and social norms promote the development of perseverance. Take Japan's concept of gaman, enduring the seemingly unbearable with patience and dignity. This cultural value explicitly celebrates perseverance through difficulty, making it a core virtue rather than just a means to an end. Similarly, the German educational system's emphasis on thoroughness and mastery before advancement naturally cultivates the kind of sustained effort that characterizes grit. Within American society, certain subcultures also stand out for their grit-promoting qualities. As mentioned earlier, immigrant communities often foster remarkable perseverance in their children. Duckworth, herself the daughter of Chinese immigrants, notes how the immigrant experience typically combines three elements particularly conducive to grit development. 1. A deep appreciation for opportunity, often missing in those who have never experienced its absence. 2. An emphasis on education and achievement as pathways to security and advancement. 3. A willingness to defer gratification and endure hardship for future benefit. We see similar patterns in other subcultures with strong achievement orientations. Certain religious communities, for instance, often instill values of discipline, service, and long-term perspective that naturally align with grit development. Athletic subcultures, particularly in demanding sports like gymnastics or swimming, create environments where sustained effort through discomfort becomes normalized and expected. Organizational cultures can also dramatically influence grit. Duckworth cites Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll's approach as exemplary, combining extremely high standards with genuine concern for players' overall development. This supportive, demanding style mirrors the authoritative parenting that research links to grit development in children. What's particularly interesting is how cultural differences in grit often reflect different time perspectives. Cultures that emphasize immediate results and quick gratification tend to undermine grit, while those with longer time horizons naturally foster it. As psychologist Walter Mischel's famous marshmallow experiments on delayed gratification suggested, the ability to resist immediate rewards for greater future benefits strongly predicts life outcomes, and this ability is significantly shaped by cultural context. This cultural dimension helps explain why grit can sometimes be challenging to develop in contemporary American society. We live in a culture that often celebrates instant success, quick fixes, and hacks for everything from weight loss to language learning. Social media reinforces this with carefully curated images of achievement that hide the messy, difficult process behind them. Reality TV shows like American Idol compress years of skill development into dramatic moments of discovery, creating the illusion that talent alone produces success. These cultural messages subtly undermine grit by suggesting that remarkable achievement should come quickly and easily to the truly gifted. They create what Duckworth calls a cult of the natural, an excessive focus on innate talent that devalues the role of sustained effort. However, Duckworth also notes countervailing cultural forces that promote grit, from traditional religious values of perseverance to the growing growth mindset movement in education. These cultural elements provide alternative narratives that highlight the role of effort and persistence in achievement. What's the takeaway from these cultural observations? First, we should recognize how profoundly our social context shapes our capacity for grit. The messages we receive from family, schools, media, and the broader culture powerfully influence whether we develop the passion and perseverance necessary for long-term achievement. Second, we can deliberately seek out or create grit cultures within our own spheres of influence. Parents can establish family values that celebrate effort and persistence. Teachers can create classroom norms that normalize struggle as part of learning. Coaches can develop team cultures where sustained effort is expected and rewarded. Business leaders can build organizational environments where long-term development matters as much as short-term results. And finally, we can become more conscious consumers of cultural messages about achievement. When we encounter stories of overnight success, we can look deeper for the years of preparation that preceded the breakthrough. When we see exceptional performances, we can appreciate not just the talent displayed, but the thousands of hours of practice that made it possible. In doing so, we create personal narratives about achievement that more accurately reflect how extraordinary accomplishment actually happens. Grit in practice. Stories and examples. Throughout her book, Duckworth illustrates her research with compelling stories of grit in action. These examples not only make the concept more concrete, but show how grit manifests across different domains of achievement. Take Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. Early in his career, Dimon was unexpectedly fired by his mentor, Sandy Weil, at Citigroup. Instead of letting this major setback derail his career, Dimon used the time to reflect, learn from the experience, and strategically plan his next move. He eventually became one of the most successful bank executives in the world. Not because he was naturally gifted at banking, though he certainly had talents, but because he demonstrated remarkable resilience and strategic perseverance in the face of what could have been a career-ending setback. Or consider Steve Young, who spent 4 frustrating years as a backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers behind Joe Montana. Rather than transferring to another team where he could start immediately, Young chose to stay, using every practice as an opportunity to improve his skills. His patience and persistent work ethic eventually paid off when he became the starting quarterback and led the team to a Super Bowl victory. Young's story exemplifies what Duckworth calls the critical combination of passion and perseverance. He loved football enough to endure years of waiting and use that time to continuously improve. Perhaps one of the most striking examples comes from the world of spelling bees. Duckworth studied national spelling bee finalists and found that the most successful competitors weren't necessarily those with the highest IQs or best verbal abilities. Rather, they were the ones who adopted specific, deliberate practice strategies, studying word patterns rather than memorizing individual words, getting feedback from coaches, focusing on their weaknesses, and putting in more practice hours. These young spellers showed remarkable grit in their approach to what might seem like a talent-based competition. The world of art provides another compelling illustration through the story of John Irving, the best-selling novelist. Despite significant reading disabilities, Irving became one of America's most celebrated authors. How? By developing extraordinary work habits to compensate for his natural difficulties. He would write and rewrite drafts repeatedly, spend more time on his assignments than his peers, and approach writing with methodical persistence rather than relying on flashes of inspiration. Irving once said, "To do anything really well, you have to overextend yourself." In my case, I learned that I just had to pay twice as much attention. I came to appreciate that in doing something over and over again, something that was never natural becomes almost second nature. These stories highlight several important aspects of grit in practice. First, gritty individuals tend to reframe setbacks as opportunities. When faced with failure or disappointment, they look for lessons and ways to improve rather than seeing the setback as evidence of their limitations. This resilient mindset allows them to maintain their passion and effort even when things don't go as planned. Second, they demonstrate remarkable consistency. Their achievement doesn't come from sporadic bursts of intense effort, but from sustained application over extended periods. As Duckworth puts it, they approach achievement as a marathon, not a sprint. Third, gritty achievers often exhibit what psychologists call deliberate practice, the kind of focused, challenging work that targets weaknesses and stretches capabilities. They don't just put in hours, they put in smart, strategic effort directed at improvement. Fourth, they show goal hierarchy, the ability to organize their efforts around a top-level goal while flexibly adjusting lower-level goals as needed. This combination of ultimate goal consistency with tactical flexibility is a hallmark of grit. Perhaps most importantly, gritty individuals develop identities around their pursuits. They don't just do activities, they become the kind of person who persists at those activities. This identity integration means their passion and perseverance flow naturally from their sense of self, rather than requiring constant willpower. What's particularly encouraging about these examples is their diversity. Grit isn't confined to certain types of people or specific domains. It appears in business executives and athletes, writers and musicians, students and teachers. It's relevant whether you're pursuing artistic excellence, athletic achievement, business success, or academic mastery. This universality suggests that grit isn't about conforming to a single path or personality type. It's about finding your own passionate interests and applying sustained effort to develop them over time. The specific goals may differ dramatically from person to person, but the underlying process of passionate perseverance remains remarkably consistent. These real-world examples also remind us that grit doesn't mean never changing direction. Many of Duckworth's examples involve people who adjusted their specific goals or approaches while maintaining commitment to their overarching purpose. Grit isn't about rigidly sticking to a plan, regardless of evidence. It's about maintaining direction while learning and adapting along the way. As Duckworth puts it, grit isn't just about quantity of time devoted to interests, but also quality of time. Not just working hard, but also working smart. Beyond grit, balance, and limitations. While Duckworth makes a compelling case for grit's importance, she's careful to acknowledge that it isn't the whole story of achievement or well-being. In her final chapters, she addresses important questions about the limits of grit and how it fits into a balanced approach to life. First, she emphasizes that grit isn't the same as workaholism or toxic perseverance. There's a crucial difference between passionate persistence toward meaningful goals and stubborn continuation of fruitless efforts. Truly gritty individuals aren't just doggedly persistent. They're also thoughtful about when persistence makes sense and when changing approach or even changing goals might be wiser. This brings up an important tension. When should we grit our teeth and persevere, and when should we move on? Duckworth acknowledges there's no simple formula for this decision, but offers some guidance. Higher-level goals, like contribute to scientific understanding, are more worthy of long-term commitment than lower-level goals, like complete this specific experiment. Changing methods while maintaining ultimate aims often makes more sense than abandoning those aims entirely. Reflection, mentorship, and honest assessment are crucial for distinguishing between productive persistence and futile stubbornness. She also addresses concerns about whether grit might come at the expense of other important qualities. What about creativity, spontaneity, or work-life balance? Research suggests these aren't actually in opposition to grit. Contrary to romantic notions of creativity as purely spontaneous inspiration, most creative breakthroughs come from sustained engagement with problems over time. Exactly the kind of passionate persistence that characterizes grit. As for work-life balance, Duckworth notes that grit doesn't require neglecting important relationships or personal well-being. In fact, many gritty individuals draw strength and support from close relationships, and their health habits often reflect the same disciplined approach they bring to their work. The key is integrating various life domains around core values rather than seeing them as competing priorities. Then there's the question of whether some people are naturally grittier than others. Duckworth's research suggests that while genetic factors do influence personality traits related to grit, these predispositions account for only part of the picture. Environmental influences and deliberate cultivation play major roles in developing grit over time. This means that regardless of natural tendencies, most people can become significantly grittier through the strategies discussed earlier. Another important limitation concerns cultural and socio-economic context. Critics have rightly pointed out that grit isn't equally accessible or rewarded across different backgrounds. Structural barriers, discrimination, and lack of opportunity can undermine even the grittiest individual's chances for advancement. Duckworth acknowledges these systemic issues, noting that grit functions best when paired with social supports and equitable opportunities. This brings us to perhaps the most important point. Grit is necessary but not sufficient for a flourishing life. Other qualities matter enormously. Kindness, ethical integrity, wisdom, joy in meaningful relationships, to name a few. Achievement isn't the only measure of a successful life, and single-minded pursuit of accomplishment at the expense of these other dimensions would be a hollow victory indeed. As Duckworth writes, "I won't claim that grit is the only thing that matters for success. In terms of how we fare in the marathon of life, effort counts tremendously. But of course, how we fare depends on many things other than effort. Opportunity, for instance, matters enormously, and so does talent." What makes Duckworth's argument compelling is that she never suggests grit is the only thing that matters, just that it matters more than we typically recognize and can be developed more deliberately than we often attempt. In a culture that sometimes overemphasizes natural talent and underappreciates sustained effort, her research provides a valuable counterbalance. Perhaps the most balanced perspective comes from seeing grit not as an end in itself, but as an enabler of meaningful achievement and growth. When passion and perseverance serve worthy goals, contributing to others, creating beauty, advancing knowledge, building a better world, grit becomes not just a path to personal success, but a means of living with purpose and impact. In this light, Cultivating grit isn't about grinding relentlessly toward achievement for achievement's sake. It's about developing the capacity to pursue what matters most with the sustained attention and effort that meaningful accomplishment requires. It's about becoming the kind of person who can translate values and aspirations into reality through consistent action over time. Conclusion: the grit opportunity. As we reach the end of our exploration of grit, it's worth reflecting on what makes Duckworth's research so compelling and potentially transformative. In a world that often celebrates innate talent and quick results, her work offers a refreshingly different perspective on what truly drives extraordinary achievement. The core message of grit is ultimately an optimistic one. While we can't control our genetic endowment or many of our life circumstances, we have remarkable capacity to develop the qualities of passion and perseverance that drive long-term success. This shift in focus, from fixed traits we can't change to malleable qualities we can cultivate, opens up possibilities for personal growth and achievement that might otherwise seem out of reach. Think about what this means practically. A student struggling with mathematics isn't doomed by a lack of math genes, but can develop skills through persistent, focused effort. An aspiring musician without prodigy-level natural talent can still achieve mastery through years of deliberate practice. A professional facing career setbacks can bounce back and ultimately thrive through resilience and strategic persistence. This isn't just positive thinking or wishful self-help advice. It's a conclusion grounded in decades of rigorous research across multiple domains of achievement. Time and again, studies show that sustained, passionate effort toward meaningful goals predicts success better than measures of talent or intelligence alone. What I find particularly valuable about Duckworth's work is how it bridges ancient wisdom with modern science. The importance of perseverance isn't a new insight. Virtually every philosophical and religious tradition has emphasized the value of persistence in the face of challenges. What Duckworth adds is empirical evidence and practical strategies for developing this quality in ourselves and others. Her research also helps explain patterns we observe in the world around us. Why some highly talented individuals never reach their potential, why certain cultural or family environments consistently produce high achievers, and why the path to mastery in any domain tends to involve similar elements of focused, long-term practice. But perhaps most importantly, the concept of grit offers a more democratic vision of achievement than theories focused primarily on innate talent. While natural abilities are distributed unequally and largely beyond our control, the capacity to work hard, persist through challenges, and maintain focus on long-term goals is more widely accessible and more responsive to deliberate development. This doesn't mean everyone starts from the same place or faces the same obstacles. Structural inequalities, discrimination, and differences in opportunity remain significant challenges that no amount of individual grit can fully overcome. As Duckworth herself acknowledges, we need both individual effort and systems that provide equitable support and opportunity. Still, within the spheres where we do have influence, our own habits and mindsets, how we parent and teach, the cultures we create in our organizations, the principles of grit offer powerful leverage for positive change. By cultivating passion and perseverance in ourselves and supporting their development in others, we can expand the boundaries of what's possible. So as we conclude, I invite you to consider, where might applying these principles of grit make the most difference in your life? What worthy goal might benefit from more consistent effort over time? What areas of passion could you develop more deeply? What challenges might look different if viewed through the lens of growth rather than fixed limitations? The journey toward any significant achievement is rarely smooth or straightforward. There will be setbacks, plateaus, moments of doubt, and unexpected obstacles. But as Duckworth's research shows, these challenges aren't signs that you're on the wrong path. They're integral parts of any meaningful journey toward mastery and accomplishment. In the end, grit isn't just about achievement for achievement's sake. It's about developing the capacity to bring your most important values and aspirations into reality through consistent action over time. It's about becoming the kind of person who can translate vision into accomplishment, potential into actual impact. And that's an opportunity available to all of us, regardless of where we begin. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of grit, the power of passion and perseverance. I hope you found ideas that spark reflection and perhaps even action in your own pursuit of what matters most.